Hogstye.
Hey everybody, and welcome to a pregame episode of the Hogstye. We are doing this on Tuesday night. Why? Because there's a Thursday night game, and we're going to have to stay up till like 2 a.m. doing that.
Oh, dark 30.
Doing a post-game show, and it's going to be awful. And I'm going to be angry anyway because it's Yom Kippur, so I'll be fasting the whole day, and that'll just...
You won't be drunk, though, at least.
Well, I don't know how much I'll really want to drink, because all I'm gonna eat is like a bagel for, after fasting for 24 hours, and that'll be it.
You're also going to have to work the next day, though,
Yeah,
right?
and I also got to work the next day. It's
Yeah,
awful.
So at least you'll be sober. That's a positive.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Well, it depends how the game goes.
Hey, I survived a hurricane today, so...
Yeah, you
nothing
guys
else
had
can
a
be worse
surprise
than that.
hurricane down there.
It was a sneak attack.
Yeah.
But in the world, when you live on the Gulf Coast, this isn't the type of storm that anybody gets riled up over.
No, it was like barely Category 1, right? Like, it was a lower one.
Yeah, it was like barely a storm.
My in-laws
we
are
don't even
pissed
count these.
because they just had a fence put in and it ripped down their new fence.
Oh, yeah.
Little things like that are annoying. But, yeah.
Nothing to get... For you guys in the Northeast, it would have scared the heck out of you. For us on the Gulf Coast, we just went,
Right.
It's a storm. We'll
But
get
it's
through
like...
it.
But no one really, even was talking about it. It was just like, hey, surprise, here's a hurricane.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't watch local news anyway,
Right.
so I didn't even know about it in the first place. And then, literally yesterday, I get told, you understand this tropical storm, right? I went, oh,
Right.
okay. Oh, it's a hurricane now. Oh, cool.
Yeah, in D.C., we have that with protests. It's that equivalent. You're told, hey, don't come in Friday because there's a big protest coming. Oh, all right. I'll just stay home.
You have protests, we have hurricanes.
Yeah, and they're about the same. A whole lot of nothing.
If they cause a ton of damage, what are you talking about?
Right, exactly.
For no reason.
All right, so we should talk about the team. There's some big stuff that happened, of course, with the roster. Mainly, we knew Fitzpatrick got hurt last week. We talked about that on the post-game show. I don't think we realized how bad it was, but it's looking like he's going to be out for at least half the season now. I've heard 6 to 8 weeks is kind of the estimate.
Well, our buddy Burgundy Blog,
Yeah.
who I know does not want us to disclose who he is and all that,
Right.
but I do know he knows about this sort of stuff, and he said it could be 4 weeks or it could be all season.
Right. There's a pretty big range, and the fact that he's,
Right.
38, 39 years old doesn't help because, healing is just different when you get older. But the best timetable I've heard is he'll probably be back after the bye week. That's probably the realistic, optimistic, you get him for the second half of the season kind of thing. So, that's going to be a big thing. That kind of throws a lot of this team's plans in the trash, so to speak, because now we're going to go with the Taylor Heineke show, which part of me is very happy about because part of me wanted to see what this kid had anyway, if it would last a half a season or a full season. But part of me is pretty nervous there, Steve.
Well, raise your hand if you think Taylor Heineke's going to play more than a few games before he's on IR himself.
Yeah, that's a fair question. That's a fair point. Yeah.
Then we'll be down to the Kyle Allen era, which is what we started with last year.
And that'll only last 2 or 3 games, and then we're to the Kyle Shermer era. So,
and before you say who,
yeah,
because this is what we certainly did. Kyle Shermer was signed to the practice squad this week, which is not a half bad idea. Shermer has never played an actual NFL game yet, but he's a 2019. He's 2018 Vanderbilt grad. He's bounced around a few teams here
Bengals,
and there.
I think, right?
Bounced around.
Yeah.
I believe the Chiefs maybe. Again, he's never played an NFL game, but he is 6'4", 225. He had a 57% completion percentage in college, which is not good.
No.
In that regard. 64 touchdowns, 29 interceptions. There's a reason he's a practice squad type.
Yeah. I looked at
expect
his
the world
college
from
stats
him.
real quick. I think he didn't get above 50% his first 2 years in terms of completion percentage. And this is just my rule. I don't think any NFL coach or scout would ever say this. I just look at a guy's college completion percentage and say, take it down 10%, and that's maybe where they're at in the NFL. Just like as a guess.
Well, it's very rarely does it improve.
Allen,
I mean, I can name Matthew Stafford improved and Josh Allen improved.
Right, and that's about it. of like every
Right.
quarterback who's been drafted in the last 30 years, it's like 2 guys who've actually done better.
Those 2 guys are the only. I researched this at one point in
Yeah.
time, and those are the only ones I found were those 2 guys.
Right.
And Josh Allen was because of some very good coaching and over a number of years, and he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, and now he's accurate, but it took a lot of work, and it's very rare.
Now, there's
so
a
don't
caveat.
expect Kyle Shermer.
Like, the completion percentage in the NFL has just started climbing in the last, 3 or 4 years in general, but...
I would say maybe 10, but yes.
But notice there's been a noticeable jump where it's like gone from low 60s to mid to high 60s all of a sudden.
Yeah, true. Yes.
But regardless, if Shermer is in there, just mark it as a loss. Like that's the situation we're looking at.
Well, he's on the practice squad now. It's going to take a lot of injuries to get Kyle Shermer
not a
on
lot.
the field.
2. 2 is not a lot.
Well, yeah, true. 2 more, yes.
It takes 2 guys getting hurt on Thursday, tomorrow for
2
those
guys who
listening.
get routinely hurt a lot.
Yes. One guy's not even fully healthy right now. I think we should mention that too.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, this is not a fun situation
Kyle
at
Allen
quarterback.
guy, not totally healthy.
I mean, here's the thing. I do say I think I'm a little in the Taylor Heineke fan club just because he was so closely tied to Robbie, our old friend there, and Robbie did nothing but sing his praises for years. And yeah, they play together. Of course, Robbie's going to be loyal to his quarterback. But when you watch the guy play, he is fun to watch, even if he's not elite NFL arm talent. He's a guy who scrambles around. He tries to make plays. And that is at least fun to watch, even if it's not. He's not, Patrick Mahomes.
He's got moxie.
Yes.
He
Chutzpah.
does, and this is what Robbie always said about him. But this is long before he was even signed with Washington. Robbie always sung his praises and he always said that Taylor Heineke, played this way and did whatever it took to win,
Right.
and he was a great leader and all that. He always said that about him, and that's pretty much what he is. Heineke's problem has been injuries in the NFL. I mean, what's his name? Ron Rivera clearly likes him, clearly believed in him. Scott Turner has had him in 2 different places now, clearly likes him, clearly believes in him. He just cannot stay healthy. That's his problem.
It's that, but I mean, he's a smaller guy, which, people still hold that against.
Oh, I'm not saying he's going to be in the Hall of Fame,
Yeah.
but I mean, could he be a legit NFL quarterback?
Sure.
Maybe, but he's got to play 16 games,
Right. And then, of course, like I said, you saw it on that deep pass to Terry McLaurin last week. He doesn't have like elite NFL arm strength. He can put everything into a throw downfield and it gets downfield, but it's kind of like Colt McCoy and a lot of other historic backups we've seen where that's not there necessarily.
I think if you ask me, with all apologies to Robbie, I think Taylor Heineke's a perfect backup.
Yeah, I think he is a backup. But
Right.
the nice thing is, we're going to see what he is now. I think,
Yes.
and that was kind of my argument at the end of last season was, I want to see what these guys are before I say, let's just get somebody else.
I just think it might be not a half-bad idea for Logan Thomas to throw 3 balls or something this week.
Just in
that's
case.
all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're probably right.
Yeah.
You're probably right. Because if we get in a body bag situation, he's third on the depth
gonna
chart
be
right
him.
now.
Oh, yeah, it has to be him.
All right. Well, why don't we talk about this game coming up? Is there any other?
Well, the other one is Jared Norris got signed to the active roster.
Yeah,
all of this means, all these moves and everything means that Washington actually only has 52 players on the roster right now.
Right.
Which is a bit odd, but that it kind of is what it is. And then they've got 15 on the practice squad now as well.
Yeah, with it being such a short week, some people were thinking they should bring in Cam Newton. They didn't even have time to bring in.
They don't really have time. Yeah, no, what's the point?
The other thing, there were 2 other little stories that I'll mention. We made a lot of jokes about that burst pipe. The team came out, or FedEx Field came out and said that wasn't a sewer pipe, that it was rainwater stored in a storage tank that pipe burst.
Whatever, FedEx.
I mean, hey.
That's because the people there didn't smell sewage.
Well, rainwater can smell a little funky. Maybe so. Like, it's a good excuse. Steve, you put on your lawyer hat. You got to come up with something. You can't say it's sewage, right?
There's a bunch of lawyers sitting around.
Yeah.
And it's probably outside counsel and Washington's general counsel going, okay, what can we do? What can we say? Let's say it's rainwater.
Right.
And just hope nobody catches Girardia, and we'll be all right.
Yeah. And they also hooked all the people sitting in that section up with club seats for the rest of the game, which,
Just the game, that'll give it the rest. We dumped sewage on you. It ought to be the rest of the season, for God's sakes.
Yeah. The other thing, and Steve, you're probably going to hate this because it's politically, not your thing, but the team announced that they're going to do the first NFL night out, which is, gay pride night at the game.
Oh, my God. Listen, I mean, I have nothing against, whatever you are is fine with me. I don't care. Gay, straight, black, white, purple, it doesn't really matter. I think that since you brought it up, I'm going to riff on it. I think the world is much better off if we just stop dividing ourselves and just all watch football. It's all ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Well,
That's my
it
thought.
is a historic first though for the NFL, so that's why I'm mentioning it.
Everything's an historic first, man. Who cares? It's more divisive than it is helpful.
It's not a historic first if you don't do it first. That
if you want that kind of historic first, fine.
Somewhere.
It's the world is dividing them. Insists on dividing themselves into every group imaginable, and we just forget a little bit about humanity. And it's the world is not a better place when we do this kind of thing.
Okay, well, why don't we move on?
Since you brought it up, you wanted me to not react to it?
No, I didn't want you to react to it, but I'm mentioning it.
Yeah,
I think,
fair enough.
For all this team's history and issues with civil rights, it's nice to be on the flip side of a few of these things from time to time. So, that's my...
I'm not worried about what happened in the 60s, man. That was a long time ago.
Well... It's not that long ago. My parents were alive. Your parents
it's 60
were alive.
years ago, dude. It is a long time ago.
So, all right. Well, why don't we move on to the game? Okay. All right. Do we want to start out with Washington's offense versus the Giants' defense?
No, I want to start the other way around. I think we ought to start with the Giants' offense.
Okay. All right. So, I don't know about you. I went and watched the Giants game. I actually watched it just a few hours ago.
Yeah, I did watch it.
Here's what I picked up on.
By the way, thanks Game Pass for not giving us
all 22 still
coach's film. Yeah, thanks for taking our $100.
Right, I'm fine watching the normal game, but yeah, I'd rather see some all 22.
But go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Here were the things I picked up on right away that I'm worried about. As bad as their offense can be at times, this team has always had issues with Daniel Jones' ability to run. Ron Rivera talked about that today. And he still, he's got wheels, man. Like, you watch that game, he's getting out of the pocket. He's trying to pick up first downs with his feet when he has to. So I'm still worried about that. And here's my thinking, Steve. Tell me I'm crazy. We haven't seen Jamin Davis do a whole lot, but we do know he has good raw athletic ability. Maybe the best use for a guy who's kind of green. You don't necessarily trust him with a lot of the, zones and, all that stuff. Just tell him, be a quarterback spy. When you're out there, that's your job. Just spy the quarterback. Because I think he can out-athlete Daniel Jones pretty well. So that might be a good use for him.
Well, he's definitely faster than Daniel Jones, for sure. Here's my opinion about Daniel Jones. He has physical talent. Mm-hmm. There are times when Daniel Jones makes amazing, high-quality NFL throws.
Sure.
There are also times when he looks horrible. And there are times when his offensive line betrays him. Mm-hmm. I actually think as a general construct to people, and the fans are going to hate this, and, I'm sorry, but the Giants aren't a lot different than the Redskins in many respects. The Giants' offense can be very inconsistent. Yeah. They have times when they look like they have amazing talent. There are times when Daniel Jones to Kenny Golladay and Sterling Shepard is like, holy cow, what just happened? What did they just do? Mm-hmm. And there are other times when it looks like Daniel Jones belongs with the Washington Defenders.
Yeah.
And so the trick to me, you got to make this guy uncomfortable. He's still young. I don't think he does very well. I don't have the stats in front of me, the pressure stats and all that, but I think you have to make him uncomfortable. So to me, one of the keys to this game is the defensive front four.
Sure.
I know we can say that in a lot of games, but in this game in particular, when you have a mobile guy who has in the past killed us on the ground, and he's got a strong arm and a good arm, but he's young and inconsistent, make him uncomfortable. This is the game. Unlike, yes, Chase and Montez and those guys blew it last week. Last week is over.
Right.
This is a much bigger, much more important game, and they need to come through.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all kind of felt let down last week with the front four. That's for sure. But my concern with Jones is, still going to be there. That his mobility kind of negates what our front four does, which is try and pressure guys in the pocket because he can escape.
Well, there's no doubt about it. I mean, but they need to figure it out. And maybe your idea of having Jamin Davis as a spy is workable. I mean, it makes sense to me. I don't know if you can do that. Have that be his only assignment.
Right. You can't do one thing the whole game, obviously, but
right.
I'm thinking more.
You can certainly have him spy him. Yeah, you can certainly have him spy Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to let Jones get on a roll. Because if you notice against the Broncos, there were times when the Giants' offense was moving fairly well. They didn't score a lot of points.
I think they only had
They didn't
one
put it
touchdown,
all together.
right?
Yeah, they didn't put it all together. But there are times when the offense looks good. They're not a total disaster. And the reason they aren't a good team is the same reason Washington has not been a good team, and that is that they are inconsistent and they make mistakes. Right. And mentally, they just are not all there for 60 minutes.
The one thing
that's been the problem in D.C. That's the problem with the
one
Giants.
thing I also noticed with Jones, at least in that last game, his ball speed is impressive. Like, he has an arm where, that ball flies out of his hand.
Absolutely.
His issue, for the most part, is that he doesn't know how to not throw a fastball. Like, he throws the same speed ball on a dump-off as he does on a 40-yard pass, and that's his issue, man. Like,
that's one of them. I mean, he's just sometimes he's just not consistent in the quality of his passing,
right.
And yeah, he doesn't have good touch.
No, he doesn't have good touch
no
at
doubt
all.
About it.
Honestly,
but there are times when he looks like the next coming of Aaron Rodgers in terms, like I'm talking play by play. There are some plays where you just go, "Wow, what a throw!"
Right.
And listen, the Giants have put some talent on the field.
Yeah, they have some good players.
Sterling Shepard, Kenny Galladay, that's a heck of a duo as a starter. Kadarius Toney didn't do anything last week, but he's a first-round draft pick. I mean, they have talent.
Yeah, I mean, even though Saquon Barkley had a bad game last week.
Saquon Barkley isn't healthy.
No, he's not 100%, but you still have to worry about him a little. He still is a talented running back overall, obviously.
Yeah, but I just thought that I could be totally wrong, and he could prove me wrong this coming week or Thursday, but I just don't think he's totally over his knee injury. It's kind of like watching RG3 in 2013. You just knew he wasn't all there. I just think Saquon isn't all there.
Yeah, okay. I mean, look, I don't know how bad that knee is. I don't think
I just didn't look like he had the burst that he had. And his ability to cut just didn't seem like it was there. There were times against the Broncos that he stopped on plays that, one-on-one against defenders that he would have avoided last year.
It is kind of,
in my opinion.
It is also the risk of taking a first-round running back, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
And
again, I could be wrong, but that was my impression based on the Broncos game, and they only gave him 11 touches for a reason.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm looking. They only had 20 runs, and 6 of them were Daniel Jones last week. Right. Yeah.
And now, normally, if you have Saquon Barkley, you want to make him the feature. The offense needs to run through Saquon, but I just don't think he's. I think they know he's not 100%.
No, he clearly didn't look great. It could also be partly that O-line of theirs. That O-line is still a mess. They've put more money and time into trying to fix their O-line and failed worse than any team I think I can remember. And
they have done that, man. I mean, like Will Hernandez has talent, but he's been inconsistent. Right. Like Andrew Thomas was highly drafted.
Multiple first-round picks, and they've all been busts. I feel like.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd call Andrew Thomas a bust, but certainly he's not
elite.
what you want.
No.
And Will Hernandez, we thought he was elite. We thought he was one of the best in the NFL for a year, and then like last year, totally fell apart. So who knows?
They're snake bit on the O-line, and it seems almost impossible to be that unlucky picking linemen because linemen are such a safe pick generally. Yeah, I mean, and so we talked about the receivers a little. Sterling Shepard had a great game last week. He is
over 100 yards, right?
And he's got to be their most consistent receiver they got at this point. Galladay, not a slouch either. Not much at tight end though, right?
Well, it's funny you say that because Evan Ingram, who has talent, did not practice Monday, did not practice Tuesday with a calf injury. And being as how the game is Thursday, you have to think that I would assume that means he's fairly unlikely to play.
I would assume so too.
And so I hope for his sake, I hope he's fine. But for Washington's sake, it'd be great to not have him out.
It's one less thing to worry about.
And have to worry
honestly.
about it. Yeah, exactly. And the other injuries, by the way, since we're talking about injuries, on the Giants side, the linebacker Brown, DNP, the starting guard Shane Lemieux. DNP Monday and Tuesday, and then obviously Barkley with the knee, he was limited Tuesday. So and on Washington's side, it was only Antonio Gibson. Obviously, we talked about Fitzpatrick. Gibson limited Monday, full practice Tuesday, so he should be fine.
I heard reports because I was listening to some talk radio on my way, going to grab some lunch, and they were saying that he was out there. His shoulder looks fine, so that's good news. Because that's what it was. Apparently, was a shoulder injury, not his turf toe creeping up or anything.
Right.
All right. Let's flip sides. Talk about the Heineke-led offense versus this defense.
Do we have to?
Yeah, we do. That's in the rules. We have to.
That's our job, I guess.
Yeah, it's part of the job. When I watch the Giants' defense. The one thing that I picked up on last week was they really love to bring pressure with corners. That's obvious. They love to have some speed rushes going at the quarterback, and we know Heineke does struggle against pressure more than anything else. But they're okay against the run, but when they were bringing pressure, at least against Teddy Bridgewater, it was leaving them very vulnerable in the secondary. Their secondary is not that great, so I think they're bringing pressure in hopes to kind of make you, force you into a bad pass early. So that'll be an interesting matchup to watch with Heineke.
And they've got some names in the secondary. In James Bradbury, Jabril Peppers, Logan Ryan, Adoree Jackson. I mean, these are guys that you know. But I agree that they just didn't really have it.
Jabril Peppers, did you mention him?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, at strong safety. I mean, again, these are names you know, but that doesn't mean they played well against the Broncos necessarily.
Right.
I think it comes for Washington's offense is essentially the same as it was last year. Basically, fine. De'Ami Brown's out there, wonderful. Adam Humphries, great. He didn't do anything last week.
Right.
It's basically the same offense as last year. They're, with the Giants. I mean, to me, it comes down to the front seven or the offensive line versus defensive line versus the Giants' defensive line.
Right.
You gotta like you said, Taylor Heineke is not as good under pressure. He starts running around, and he may create a little bit, but you got to give him time. And like you said, the Giants were blitzing all over the place against the Broncos. I think the offensive line has got to do better. And they've got to protect him, and they've got to open up some rushing lanes for Antonio Gibson. To me, that's how to beat the Giants. This is an NFC East game. It's always a hard-fought, tough battle in the trenches.
Yeah.
Unless it's one of those games when the Giants just blow out Washington and we just are terrible. These games are either like that or they're very tough, hard-fought games. And so I think this is a trench war this week.
It really is going to be a bit of a trench war here. By the way, Denver it felt like they were getting, they were losing in the, rushing area, but I didn't realize they had 165 rushing yards last week.
Yeah, they did.
So, I mean, that's a pretty good number, despite the fact that, like I said, it looked like the Giants were bringing some good pressure in the run game. on that defensive front of theirs. So, take that for what it's worth. Maybe I'm missing something in what I saw, but it felt like the Giants were stopping the run pretty well, even though the numbers say otherwise.
I mean, at times, it's the same problem as they have on offense. Yeah. They're inconsistent. Sure. I think it's a coaching problem, to be honest. I think Joe Judge is not a very good head coach.
No. And they've had bad coach after bad coach since Coughlin left.
Well, they have, and I just don't. Joe Judge has done weird things and all that, but I'm talking about the way he trains his players and the way he motivates his players does not produce a team. It's like Washington does not produce a team that consistently performs at a high level. They have their moments. They have their moments on defense, like you said. They for a while there, they looked like they were blitzing. They were all over Denver, but Denver ran up 27 points on them at the end of the day. I think it was 27.
27-7. Or 27,
but there were moments
13,
they had.
sorry.
But they're streaky enough to where they have moments where they can really lock down, but it just does not last. And so Washington, the team that wins this game is going to be the team that makes the fewest mistakes.
I mean, that's usually how it goes, especially in these short turnaround games,
But particularly these two teams in particular, when you have two inconsistent teams, that's what probably is going to come down to. I'm not just talking about turnovers. I'm talking about assignments, blocking schemes. In the front, we can't have a Charles Leno moment again. No. Especially with Taylor Heineke, who's another guy injury prone, as we said. So I just think it's going to come down to who makes the fewest mistakes.
I think it's going to come down to that, but I think Washington's offense needs to take advantage of a secondary that makes a lot of mistakes here, like you're saying. The passing game did not get on track at all last week. I think it's fair to say that. The running game, okay, not great. Gibson had a moment or two. Take advantage of this, man. They struggled against spread looks when Denver would go 5 wide. I don't think Denver ever missed pass once they were in those kind of sets because New York
they made a lot of them.
Yeah, and New York couldn't cover it very well. So I would maybe not go 5 wide. I think you need to leave in an extra blocker at tight end or something to help out Heineke. But spread them out, make them suffer a little bit there. That would be my plan of attack on offense this week.
I mean, they do have to take more shots down the field
for sure,
than they did last week, for sure. I mean, the problem, of course, is if Taylor Heineke's under pressure, and you just told us, Alex, about how he's bad under pressure sometimes.
Yeah, he's not. Somebody posted the numbers. He was like 10 for 11 or 9 for 10 without pressure, and then like 2 for 5 with blitzes. Well,
that makes sense. I mean, I would believe that statistic. So I get it, and obviously doesn't have a gun for an arm necessarily. So this is not like you can just go crazy, in terms of play calling. But I do think they need to open this defense in particular. They need to take advantage of what you're saying, which is a weakness in the secondary, and open it up a little bit and take some shots downfield. At this point, what does it hurt, for God's sakes? Take some shots downfield.
Take some shots downfield, but the one thing I'll be curious to see with Heineke, who's his safety valve guy? Because when we had Fitzpatrick here, you kind of knew that Humphries was brought in to be the Fitzpatrick safety valve. The guy who, if everyone else is covered, he can dump it off here. He trusts the guy. So who's that going to be for Heineke now? Because, we've only seen him for 7 quarters. I don't think he has a particularly great relationship with any one guy in particular. He's good with... He threw a couple nice passes to Terry McLaurin. He's done a couple to Logan Thomas, but nothing blows your mind. I don't think Heineke going to Thomas is going to be the go-to route, right? That's not how my mindset is with him yet.
It's got to be somebody. I mean, I hear you. I don't have a good answer for it.
All great quarterbacks have that guy, right? They all do at some point.
Yes, and who that is, I mean, God only knows. No idea.
Right.
We'll find out, because the reason I'm not trying to be cavalier about it, but like you said, we haven't seen him play much. That's why. I mean, if you go back to, which I'm sitting here looking at it, if you go back to the Tampa game, which I have.
Okay. You're going to look up who had the most catches, I assume? I feel like it's going to be Cam Sims or something. It's either Cam or Logan Thomas with the most.
It was Antonio Gibson. Oh, that was rushing. It was Cam Sims.
Okay.
Cam Sims, Logan 13, Logan Thomas 9, Terry McLaurin 7. I'm talking targets.
Right.
So those three guys.
Is that sad that my memory somehow remembered that it was probably Cam's?
It's impressive. Not sad. It's pretty impressive that
I
you
just have
remembered that.
nothing else going on.
You have nothing else interesting at all to think about.
Nothing else. So, all right. So hope maybe if you're a fantasy guy, maybe you put Cam Sims in this week.
There you go. There's the Hogstyes fantasy tip of the week. Play Cam
right.
Sims.
Do not take that advice and then hold me to it if Cam Sims has like one catch, because I know nothing about fantasy football anymore.
There you go. There's the disclaimer.
I stopped playing fantasy football 3 years ago when I realized it was just a massive waste of my time. So.
Yeah, that was pretty much me too. It's like I don't have time for this.
Yeah. I enjoyed it for like
too
the
much time
first
on
year,
football
and then I got sick of it.
I have too much football in my life already. I don't also need to obsess over fantasy football.
Yeah, exactly. Also, I got angry at myself for drafting a Cowboy one year, and I never got over that.
So you can't do that, man. That's the thing. I refuse to draft. I can't, and so I'm not a good fantasy player because I won't do that.
Right.
Right. I'm not gonna, even if Dak Prescott's available, I'm passing him up.
See, that's so hard to do and that's the problem. All right,
That's why
I'm looking.
I don't play
What
it.
else do I have in terms of? All right, talking about. I will say the one thing that I kept writing the Giants have good speed on defense, like actual speed. When you watch the Washington defense play, they kind of looked slow last week. The Giants had speed,
Even though they have speed.
yeah. Well, there's 40 times speed, and then there's game speed, right? We've always heard that before. And I felt like
Chase Young's a perfect example of it. His 40 time wasn't very good. His 40 time, I mean, he didn't do a 40 at his pro day, but the rumors were earlier in his college career that he was like at the 4.8 level.
Right.
But he's got burst and game speed, even if he doesn't have track speed.
Right. And the Giants have a lot of burst type speed, it feels like, when you watch them play.
Well, again, there were times against the Broncos that they looked motivated. They were flying around the field. And then the other times they just didn't execute, and they just let the Broncos run up and down the field on them. It just depended on the moment. That's the problem. You have these mediocre teams like this. You have two mediocre to bad teams. It always comes down to execution.
Yep. And this is going to be a tough one to predict, and I know we got to do our predictions.
But you're stalling because you still don't know what you're going to say.
I really don't know which way I want to go.
I'll go first, even though I don't really. Yeah, are we at prediction time?
Yeah, we're
at
at prediction time. I know we both predicted a win initially, but what you initially predicted, how you feel now, is going to be two very different things.
Did I? I think no. I think I predicted
a
loss in this.
Did you predict a loss?
Yeah, you predicted
I definitely
a win.
predicted a win.
A loss.
I thought everyone predicted a win. Was I wrong?
Yeah, you were. 'Cause I predicted a loss, and the reason I said that is the Giants the Giants, for those of you who don't remember, have won 5 in a row. And 2 of those have been blowouts. One of them wasn't as close as the score suggested. Washington just hasn't played well against the Giants. The Giants always seem to play their best football against Washington. Yeah. And so I'm always a contrarian a bit when it comes to the home field advantage in the NFC East, because I've seen a lot of games where the visiting team comes in and wins. So I picked the Redskins to split the series this year, and that was why but that having been said, I'm gonna go against my nature here, and I'm going to be a bit optimistic because I like Taylor Heineke. I'm gonna have faith in Taylor Heineke for 1 week. If he doesn't come through, I'm not gonna have faith in him anymore. But I'm gonna say he's gonna bring a little spark. He's going to execute. If he can hang with Tom Brady, little Tommy Brady, he can hang with Daniel Jones. So I'm going to say Washington pulls this out in a tough, hard-fought battle. It's going to be low-scoring because neither team is very good. So it's going to be another one of these like 24-20 games. So I'm going to say Washington. I'm going to contradict myself, and I'm going to say Washington.
All right. So Steve is changing his vote, as it were.
Yeah, I mean, I'm stuck for the overall season thing. I'm stuck with it.
Of course,
I'm just saying, for right now.
Okay, so I guess I'm going to go with the win, too. I'm going to stick with what I said. I think Heineke does have a little bit of a good game. we did see last week the Giants just couldn't put up points last week in the end, when it came right down to it.
No, they couldn't.
So I think it's going to kind of be a similar situation, 21-17 Washington, that kind of range. Not a blowout, but it's a win, and that's kind of where we end up.
Because newsflash, Washington can't score points either.
No, they really can't.
We might be wrong. This might be like a 10-7 game.
Really, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Washington moved the ball okay at times. And, we got, 3 field goals at the start?
The Giants moved the ball okay at times.
Yeah, that's true. So,
like I said, ultimately, this game is about execution.
It really, yep. And which team you want to execute first?
Well, yeah. Let's execute the Giants first.
I'm trying to make fun of there was a college coach who was making a reference to a coach from the 70s there. So, and he misquoted the coach of Notre Dame was like, "Well, I want to execute my whole team." What was that?
I heard that somewhere, like on ESPN or something, like a week ago.
It was after week
said,
1.
I'm gonna execute
his team
all these
won,
players.
and he was yelling about execution and wanting to execute his whole team. And it was
yeah, I thought, man, he's being a bit harsh. Even if they lost, let's not execute people over just football, for God's sakes.
We're not the Mayans.
You don't need to go executing people.
Come on.
It's a bit much. I mean,
historical reference. Go look it up.
We don't live in China just yet. Give it time.
All right, guys. I think that wraps this up. When we're talking about historical people executing their teams for failing. All right, we will talk to you all after the game Friday morning. Ugh.
Hog style late night, baby.
I wish we could outlaw Thursday night games. All right, guys.
We do it for you.
Yeah, we do it for you. We'll talk to you then. Bye.